Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Find a Way Productions with your co-hosts, Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. What is up, coaches? It's the Coaching 101 podcast. I am Daniel Chamberlain. That is Kenny Simpson. First episode post having our wives on. That was a good experiment. If you don't know, include your wives in your professional life. It makes things go better. Kenny said you already got some emails about that, huh?
Yeah, I had a couple of people reach out and just said, "Hey, enjoyed hearing the podcast." I'm sure. I don't know if we have any lady listeners. I wouldn't think we have many, but we might have picked up a few from that one.
Got to thank our wives for that one, keeping us fresh. Yeah, it was a really good one. Well, season is closing in here, Coach. I think this comes out this Sunday, and then we have two scrimmages or one scrimmage after this posts, and then it's game time. So y'all are getting pretty close over there too, right?
Yeah, we have a scrimmage coming up. By the time this comes out, we'll have already had our scrimmage. It's coming up on Thursday, and so playing a really good team, be a good test for us. Last year they were a really good test for us, and scrimmages are always a good way to kind of gauge where you are.
Now, y'all do the half game at the end of your scrimmage? Do y'all get you just go out and play one half? Is that something that Arkansas does?
You can do it however you want. I think our plan is to do a half of senior high, and then third quarter be kind of a mix. So it'll still be guys we're kind of evaluating. And then the fourth quarter for us will be, pretty strict JV, 10th graders mainly.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. We generally go to there'll be a lot of teams. We'll face several teams that day or whatever, but then we close it out with a half of football, which is it's fun for the coaches. We started using headsets, and we were up in the booth for even our little purple and gold scrimmage this past Saturday. Just getting back in the flow of things. We're using some little tools behind the scenes, working some putting in data and stuff. Well, the one of the sponsors for the show, right? We're using his stuff. And it's you got to kind of get used to. You need the practice, right? You're not gonna really do that at practice. So how do coaches get that practice? Well, we're using it. Winning Edge Performance Analytics is Doug is the guy that we're using. So kind of getting used to doing that. So it'll be nice to see that half game, just how everything rolls together. Everyone actually doing their Friday night rolls. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to the scrimmages.
Yeah, it's important. If you're at a state where you don't have that opportunity, I'd encourage you to do. I know a lot of schools here in Arkansas will also do like an inter squad type scrimmage. We've kind of moved away from that because we're not able to scrimmage somebody else. But it's important, I think, for coaches to kind of get used to it. We've only added one coach to our staff, but still we've added one. So the roles will change a little bit, and that first few games is always a little chaotic, it feels like.
Yeah, I as a guy that's obviously moved around to a few different places, I always struggle to find where I belong. So I'm glad now, it is in the booth. It's not down on the field. But some people want to be on the field. Some want to be on. My first 4 years, I would have fought people to be on the field. But now, man, you can see so much more from the booth. I kind of enjoy my time up there. So it is nice having roles fairly well defined. Pretty important part of coaching. Let's jump into the quote of the week real quick. We'll hit our ads and we'll move on with the episode.
Yeah, so quote of the week is coming from Team Themes Volume number 5, which is out now. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if you're looking for a curriculum, you can work with your kids on quotes and words of the week, something we will be starting up next week. And so we're excited about that here. And this is the book and the stuff that we use. So this quote is actually an unknown author, but the theme was composure. And the quote is, maintaining composure is a testament to one's character. It reflects a deep understanding that life is filled with ups and downs, and it is how we handle those fluctuations that defines us. A calm demeanor in the face of adversity not only benefits us, but it also encourages those around us to maintain their own composure. I think that's as you get into the season, try to remember that, especially if you're a coach. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs this year, and those who tend to remain composed do well. Those who kind of wear their emotions on their sleeves when things are up are going to be up, and when things are down are going to be down. For some of us, that's easier than for others. So if you're a guy who's an emotional guy, it's going to be something you really need to work on.
Yeah, the cooler heads prevail is something that I've tried to carry with me, but I'm still a very energetic. I'm gonna go with energetic coach
That's fine.
on game night, right? And I laugh at one of my favorite stories. I got called in the principal's office the day after a junior high game, and I thought I was in trouble as a teacher. Like, why would you get called in the office? And he just told me, I'm just want to let you know I watched you run down the sidelines with the running back. This kid broke like an 85-yard touchdown, and I ran the whole thing with him. He's like, that's something we're missing around here. We need some coaches like that. Same thing when I went over to Owasso and I was talking to the AD there, and he was like, Bill Blankenship, the legend that he is very cool, calm, collective. Not everybody has to be Bill Blankenship. Like sometimes, we need some other coaches have a little fire. So some people like it, others not so much. But I do love being pumped up. But your head in the name of having energy, right? Bringing the juice, as my veterans group has been calling it recently. So.
No, energy is a great thing. Energy is a great thing. One of my coaches here, and we need to get him on the podcast. So I just hired him. He's got a statement he makes. He says, discipline over motivation. And I thought, man, that's pretty good. I mean, it's easy to get motivated and get excited. It's hard to do it when there's not juice there. Like when there's going to come times when it's not there. How do you handle it then? So I thought that was a pretty good little quote.
Man, that is a good one. Well, I'll tell you what, Coach, let's move on real quick. If you will, share some other ways a coach can make things simple for his staff and his athletes. All right, guys, as y'all know, watching live, we're going to put in our ads here, digital ads later on. We'll get right back into it here. We'll go through a few ads and then get into the talk. All right, Coach, appreciate that. As always, guys, I want to remind you to check out acesports.com. Email mark.bridges@acesports.com. He can hook you up with pretty much any of the liaisons that are throughout the states now. If you're over on the east side of the United States, anywhere from, Oklahoma over, you've probably got a direct contact that can come to you and help you set up whatever you need to set up for your school. Check out the boards, man. They're doing really cool things with them now. They're shaping them. They're customizing them. They're a better quality than the competition, period. Ace Sports is where it's at. Team Builder Practice, proud to have those guys sponsoring us this year. A lot of people know Team Builder for their strength and conditioning stuff. They've taken the jump into this, helping coaches get organized with practice planning. Look, I know that a lot of guys already have a way they schedule practice, and that's okay. You can rebuild it in this and then give your coaches, especially newer coaches, a lot more tools. I'm a big fan of the way that you can build out a drill, like a notebook, basically. Give them a video to watch. Give them your discussing key points of the drill. Show them where to stand, what their eyes should be on. You can do all that, and they can watch it at night and not waste your practice time. You're probably already into practice by now, but it's a great place to kind of get started. And then Winning Edge Performance Analytics. Of course, Doug's been hooking us up this year. Look, like I said earlier, we're using it this year, and we went back and plotted some games last year where we struggled, and we get to like the halftime point, and you can see where we should have changed our focus on offense. We should have, whether it be a scheme, whether it was going from GT counter to power or whatever, you can see what's hitting, what's not, who's stopping your play. So maybe you got to scheme up a certain kid, a certain jersey number. You can do so much with Doug's stuff. So winningedgeperformanceanalytics.com. Jump over there, get signed up today. The promo code 20OFF Coaching 101 get you 20% off this year. All right, let's jump into it here, Coach. We're talking formations today. So, your system, the Gun T system's big on formations over plays, right? Because formations are fairly cheap. Plays are quite expensive when you start talking blocking rules and what we're reading, what we're doing. You have to teach 11 kids a new thing, it feels like, if you're going to run a new play. But with formations, man, you can just move a kid around. I know that I've gotten real big into formations with Cameron and running his system. So I guess just kind of tell us, what are the benefits of carrying so many formations into a game?
Well, I mean, there's a ton. That's why I think we've got, in our specific system, we've got 3 different books out that just talk about formations and kind of how we want to use them and what we want to do. So if you're listening and would like those are over at fbcoachsimpson.com. It's just the different formation books. There's a lot of them. But the reasons we try to use them is, number one, we're trying to manipulate the defense into what we need them to be in. And so a lot of times as a coach, once you start to understand the structure of the defense and their rules to how they want to align, every defense has rules to what they're going to give. So if you're going to give trips, they probably have 2 or 3 different trips looks, and empty, they're going to give 2 or 3 different empty looks, and how they handle 2 back or a tight end or an H or whatever it is.
Right.
Every defense has rules. And if you understand their rules, you can use formations to kind of manipulate them to align certain ways, which gives you an advantage because you're now dictating the terms of engagement, basically. And think about it militarily. You're picking the ground you're fighting on now. So you're going to run the same stuff, but I can get you into a more favorable look. So a real quick example, that might be, we play some defenses that if we line up in trips, they have a certain check they're going to do. But if we motion to trips, they're rolling into a different look. So if I want to run a certain pass scheme, I may prefer to just line up in trips and run it. Or I might want to motion to it to get the different coverage adjustment I'm going to get. And of course, you can take that with the run game or whatever else you might want to get. So being able to kind of dictate alignment is number one for me. Number two for me is I know how difficult our defensive coordinators don't enjoy breaking down multiple offenses. Like when they come in on the weekend and a team is running multiple formations and doing different things out of those formations, it can be difficult for the defense because they've got to break down all of that data. So if I can give a defense a whole lot of data they got to break down, that's going to be an advantage to me because now they've got to spend, let's say they get 3 hours of practice time on defense, and that's being generous. Now they've got to spend 45 minutes of that making sure they can line up. Right. And they're not working on their keys, their fits, whatever else that might be. The caveat I want to give with that is if you decide to go down this road and run multiple formations, you need to also self-scout and kind of be aware. We don't want to only run certain plays from certain formations because that does turn the advantage back to the defense. The goal would be to be able to run your entire offense out of any formation that you run. Doesn't mean you're going to do that if it's not a favorable look, but you have the ability to do it. That makes it much more difficult for the defense. So number two, I think, is making them spend a lot of time breaking you down on the weekend. Number three, I think it allows you to move players where you want them. So you may have a certain kid that you want to move to a certain place because that's where the matchup is. Specifically in a passing game, you may be able to move a kid to the slot receiver or move him to a bunch trips or move him somewhere to create a much more favorable matchup for you. We try to do the same thing with our offensive line. I know that's unique to a lot of people where we actually will flop our linemen, flop our tight ends to create matchups there. So we're always looking for, can we create the most favorable matchup with our better athlete against potentially a lesser athlete that they might have? Then can we do it in a schematic way where he has, a leverage or he has the advantage, as far as space if he's a receiver? So we're looking for different ways to move our kids around and kind of create that advantage for them. I don't think I mentioned that on this one. I think it might be on the next one we'll talk about, but it also can kind of slow down a defense. I mentioned in the first point, we want to dictate the terms we're playing. We want to dictate how you're going to line up. We want you to spend a lot of time lining up. We don't want you to dictate to me what's coming. If I can keep it where you can't blitz as much or you can't run 4 different coverages, you're welcome to try that. But if you're doing that and you're not getting lined up correctly, that goes back to my advantage. And it's a lot more difficult for a defense to work on X, Y, and Z blitz against 30 different looks. So if I can use formations to kind of slow you down defensively, make you sit in a look I can kind of predetermine, that's going to be an advantage to me.
Yeah, the slowing the defense down, I think, is key, right? If you're going to carry out all these formations, like we know DCs that struggle against too tight formations. We know the ones that don't know how to handle tight end wing. Two backs will often throw. A lot of the modern defense is built on stopping the spread. So if you can get back to stacking the box, some of them the struggle, right? We didn't have time to put that in. The same as going empty or going, 4 receivers to a side or whatever. You start breaking out of that 2x2, 3x1 mold. And the modern defensive coordinator is they struggle with that nowadays, it seems like. So regardless of what formation you're trying to create, a whole bunch of dudes in the backfield or a whole bunch of dudes out wide, you're making those guys think. And it gets them. I remember a couple of years ago, we were installing at a school and the DC was like, hey, dude, you're expediting my install schedule. So even he was trying to just get his base stuff put in. And I'm out there going empty and quads and all. And he was like, we're not ready for this yet. So, you get in week 1, week 2, if you can throw several formations at a guy, he may not have even put the stuff in yet. Or like you said, Kenny, he's just got to be very vanilla. He has to come out and run his base stuff because, coach, I don't know what they're going to come out in. I can't predict it. Now you get later in the year, week 8, 9, 10. I'm sure that, Kenny, you're probably adding formations just like we do, right? You're always going to carry some aces up the sleeve, but some stuff they haven't seen. But by then, they've got a pretty good idea of like, okay, the defense is going to find another way to try to redictate terms, right? They're going to have to try to find a way to put their blitzes back in and kind of try to do things their way. But, man, the early season games, especially if you've got a big opponent or whatever it is, man, if you can come out and show a whole bunch of stuff, their kids may just be completely confused. We're going to have kids that won't know how to line up to us, and they see it all the time. They're part of our offense. So I know that your defense is going to struggle as well.
I'd say we didn't talk about this in this one, but I would say in formations, you could also include motions. Like I think that's one of the more you're starting to see more and more. But
yes.
For a while there, you just didn't see a lot of motions. It would be maybe you'd have a trips to twins motion or a jet sweep motion or whatever until a guy named Gus Malzahn came around. And then now if you look in the NFL, you've got a Mike McDaniel where you're starting, and then it's trickling down, obviously, or up, however you want to think things trickle. But now I think that's a subtle, easy thing is run some type of orbit motion or some type of exit motion or some type of whatever. That's a stressor on the defense.
Yep.
And it's the same as a formation, like where it's if they're man, how are they checking that? If they're zone, how are they checking that? If they're whatever, how are they checking that motion out of the backfield, into the backfield? So those little things that really don't affect your offense at all. Just taking a kid, hey, instead of starting in this formation, I want you to motion to it. Those little subtle things also are big stressors on a defense.
You talk about the motions and shifts and all the stuff. How many guys are reading, hey, you're just going to read one half the field anyway? So the 2 receivers backside are wasted. So why not put one of them in motion, bring him to the front side, and make a corner decide or an outside backer, right? Am I going to go settle on that little flat player out there that's just, or is he going to turn into a wheel? Who's going to cover him? You can do a lot. And even if it's your run game, now it's an RPO. You get a free RPO out of the game because you're using these players that you weren't going to look their way anyway. They were just going to, hey, wide receiver, go block a corner. Inside receiver, go block a safety. Maybe you're cracking on a linebacker. Maybe. Right?
A lot of defenses, what I've seen, and maybe even ours, I mean, I know we try to be more multiple, but if you motion across the formation, you're probably going to get the same adjustment. It could be a roll down safety. It could be a blitz off the edge. It could be whatever. So that's what I was mentioning. Instead of lining up in trips, motion to trips, and they may be triggering a backer and vacating a zone. So kind of knowing, okay, this is a tool I can use to get in the same formation I was going to be in anyway. and I now know what they're going to do.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So we're talking about formations, Coach, but formations, we call them cheap or less expensive, but honestly, kids can struggle to remember stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
So what are ways that you build out a single formation into a whole bunch of stuff?
Well, like you said, I think you kind of hit it in the question. Like you're gonna have kind of a home, whatever your offense's identity is going to be. If you're a spread guy, that's probably 2x2. Like that's probably where you're starting. We're tight end wing, so we're going to kind of start in that world, and that's going to be our base formation. We use colors. Other guys will use numbers or names or whatever, and it's whatever you choose. But I think it's important to have kind of a home. Like this is our home formation, and we can run in our entire offense out of this. Then you start introducing what we call tags, but basically ways to move one player to another position. Generally, that's done with skill players. So usually for us, our 5 skill players are going to have words that can move them all over the field. So we also have some unbalanced tags too, but for the most part, it's skill players. Usually we kind of live in what I call the rule of 3. Like we're going to give a kid, hey, know your home and learn these 3 words. That's it. And if once you start figuring out, okay, well, that's 3 words. That's not a big deal. That's only 15 formations because 3 times 5, but that's not how exponentials work. When you start going, I can move 5 guys 3 ways, it's not 15. It ends up being, I don't know what the exponential, I'm not smart enough with math, but it ends up turning into at least 90 because I wrote a whole book on that. So basically, it turns into a lot more formations than you think it's going to be. Then we will cherry pick 2 or 3 guys that can mentally handle it and usually give them, maybe they have 5. I've been blessed the last 3 years, my son has played for me. So he's got about 6, or we can move him all over the field. Our running back's a 4.0 kid. Usually our F only has 2 or 3 words. He might have 5 words, new motions, new things we can do with him because he knows how to handle that stuff. We got a brand new kid transfer into our district. He might only have 2 words because he's just brand new. And we're just trying to get him. He's a good ball player. And we don't want to confuse him. So it's not always 3, but that's kind of a general rule of what kids can handle. And then if you add more to that, they're going to be able to do a lot of things. And then we'll usually give them 1 or 2 motions depending on the kid. Like this year, my kid, who's our wing, and our running back, who are really good ball players for us and really smart, they have 4 different motions, not counting shifts, because they can handle that. Where our backups in those positions may only have 2. So it's something you have to kind of be aware of, but it's not that difficult. A lot of times we have automatic rules. So if we're running a run play here and you're out in space, not involved in the run, we have these different rules we'll go through. It might be a bubble screen. It might be a fast screen. It might be whatever it's going to be. And then we can tag it. So our offense ends up looking like a lot of times a run play and a pass play over here. And then the quarterback is making a decision. Usually we're helping him pre-snap. Or we bring it all together and run an RPO, where now the pass is attached to the run with a post-snap read, or we're going to read a defender. So lots of different things we can do, but our kids aren't learning a whole lot. Like yesterday, we were running our pod group, so we're working our runs with our guards and running back, and we were working our glance, or we call it peek, like a inside glance route off the inside or outside backer, depending on what we're doing. And our brand new kid looks over at me and goes, "Hey, coach, you just called that run play." I said, "Well, what are we working over here with the receivers? We're running the glance every time. It doesn't matter what the run is. You can ignore that. You're running the glance, run the glance, run the glance." And so they start to learn, oh, okay, so I only have to learn. I don't even have to know what run's going on. I just have to know I have this. So it gives you the ability to be extremely multiple. But for your kids, they're only learning a few different words, a few different automatics. And I'll be honest, like there are some years less automatics, less words. Because some years the kids don't handle it real well. And as a coach, you've got to be smart enough to go, we need to dial that back. Like if we're not moving fast and it's hurting us, we don't have to be as multiple. But if our kids can handle it, the more multiple you can be, the more tools you have to answer the looks you're going to get this year. And so I think it's important to try to not give up on it in the spring and not give up on it if you have non-conference games like we do. We're probably going to look pretty sloppy Thursday because we have a lot in, and what we learn is as the season goes on, okay, we're good at this. This is not working. And so we will trim some stuff, or if our kids handle what we've given them, we may add a little bit more to their plate. And that's kind of the way we monitor and adjust. Some years we've not been able to do as much, and we've won a bunch of games. Some years we've been able to do a lot, and we won a bunch of games. So it's not a you have to do this or that. I think it's dependent upon your players.
That's a good way to look at it. Going back to the single formation, I think the key piece here is having universal tags, right? I can't have a tag that I have to remember with some formations, but not others. They have to be universal. If a kid hears a word, like you said, Kenny, yours have 3 or 4, and I've seen you do an install, and you do yours different than us, which is that's good. I think that there needs to be different evolutions going on here, but ours are very similar. It doesn't matter if you want to squeeze the formation in, spread it out, move kids over here or there. If you want your outside receivers to go on the same side or your inside receivers to go on the same, you can do all of that. And it doesn't matter what formation you're in, right? Because that's where you can't get into getting so many. Then you're just making another formation, right? If I'm going to use 2x2 and call it whatever doubles, but then I want to use an over tag, but it only works with doubles. Well, then the kids have just had to learn an extra formation because I'm not using it elsewhere. So having it universal is a big key to me and how we keep things moving. So that way I can tag it. We carry 5, 6, 7 formations. That same tag gets me an additional formation out of each one of them. I love what you said about pairing them all up, and you get that exponential growth, moving kids around, multiple kids on each play. I love Cameron's his ideology on it. And it's just kind of the why not? Why not try to do that? So what we do is we just break down the 3 pieces. So are you the line? Are you the backfield? Or are you detached receivers? And then how can we tag up each of those on every single play? How can I make you look at a new line, a new backfield, and a new set of receivers on every play? And all I did was call the same formation. So maybe that's tackle over type stuff. Maybe that's going 2 back or 3 back. We talked about other quads or whatever you want to call 5 receivers to a side, empty variations. We want to do all of that stuff and then make you have to find a way to be gap sound. And so that's how we just take our base formations, 4, 5, 6 of them that we have, and just tag them up and make absolute chaos for anybody else who's looking from the other side of the ball. But our kids all know, hey, we're in one of these 5 or 6 formations and we're running these few base plays. Once again, our O-line learns 5 plays a year. They don't need anything else. The tags is where we add the variation. And now it looks like on film, we ran 45 different plays out of 100 formations. And how on earth are you ever going to defend it all? And our kids they're none, they're not worried at all. They've got it all down. So, which kind of segues us into our next point is how do we get our kids to remember so much? Because now you're talking about you are giving them 3 or 4 formations, and some of this may cross over, but
yeah, I didn't want to kind of hit another. I'll answer that, but I want to hit this too. Is I would be careful as an OC that sometimes we want to look good, so we run formations or motions, and we don't really know why we're running them. We just you heard us on a podcast say run multiple formations, and you heard an NFL coach do it, so you wanted to do it. I think a lot of it's got to be thought through. Like, why do we want to run this formation? What are the advantages to it? What are we looking for? That's what I tried to put in those books was here's the formations we run and here's what we're looking for. And I think if you don't kind of have that mindset, you can start running formations and giving your kids extra work that doesn't really help you win because you don't know why you're trying to run them.
Yeah.
So I want to get that little caveat here as we're doing this whole podcast. But to your point, though, Daniel, I think a lot of it is what kid can handle what. We have certain formations or certain positions in our offense that require a kid be a little bit more advanced football knowledge wise. Like I think sometimes we as coaches think, well, this kid's a 4.0. He's football smart, and it's not always the same. It's not always the same at all.
It may not ever be the same. It's very.
Yeah. So I'm not saying, okay, this kid's like smart in English, so he's naturally going to be smart in football. That's not how that works. But some kids, you'll start going, okay, this kid's got a pretty good grasp on what we're trying to do. We can give him more. So we kind of cherry pick those kids. We're lucky to be at the same school at a young age. So I'll give you an example. My son, my youngest son, is in the 7th grade. Okay. Well, in our offense, our wingback has got to be pretty intelligent, and he's got to be just pretty good at a couple different skills. He's a coach's son. He's a pretty smart kid. He knows where everyone on the field is supposed to line up. So that's the kind of kid we're going to put in that position. And we're going to find another one. We're going to groom 2 or 3 kids there. Then our slot, or we call him an A, same thing. That kid needs to be able to run the ball and catch the ball. And he's a big, we move this guy all over the field kind of player. So we're already, okay, which kid do we have in the 7th grade? Because they're about to have practice right now. Right. The 7th grade is pretty smart, that possesses these kind of skills. And we're going to put them there. Our X in our offense, great athlete, doesn't really move formations much, doesn't really have a whole lot of tags. So we might be able to put a more raw player there because he doesn't have to know as much. Last year, we were blessed with a kid who's a senior who had played for us all the way through. He played X. So we started using condensed splits, unbalanced sets. We started moving him around the field more. But most years, that position doesn't have to know as much. Same thing with our tight end. So our tight end in our offense, a lot of times, is a 6th lineman. So really, he doesn't have to know a lot of formational stuff because we need him to know how to block. So that kid for us doesn't have to know as much. So we can put maybe a more raw type player there. And I think in your offense, you got to kind of think through this stuff. Like as I'm grooming these kids up, do I have a position that I want to move around a lot? Well, that probably needs to be a pretty high football IQ type kid. What do I have in my roster? Which kids do I have that could not handle that? And I'm going to put them at another formation, another position. So I think you've got to be extremely intentional formationally when you're talking with kids. And then we start doing this stuff in the spring. And we put more on their plate than we think they can handle. And we tell them that. Like I tell them up front, we're going to do more right now than we're probably going to do on a Friday night game. We do more on Tuesday practice than we do on Friday's game because I need to see, can you handle this stuff? And if they can, that's great. And if they can't, we just take a little bit off their plate. Because we've been talking the whole podcast, formation should be a tool for you to be successful. If they're confusing your kids, that's not a tool to be successful at all. So you've got to be really careful in how you do it. While it's nice to say we want to get in 1,000 formations, we want to be able to do 1,000 things, there may be a year where you cannot do that due to your personnel. There was a couple of years, and we run the gun T here for a long time. There were a couple of years where we were still new to it. So coaches were new to it. Players were kind of new to it. We only ran about 5 or 6 formations, and we still won the conference. So you can be successful without having to use a ton of formations. However, they can be a really good tool for you if your kids and your coaches can handle that.
That's awesome. I think we get our kids to remember it by just we kind of separate the complexity between the guys who are taking blows every play and the O-line, the tight ends, and then I want to call them divas, but the guys who are running around just catching footballs or maybe blocking for an RPO here or there. our O-line doesn't do a lot, right? Like I said, we have a tackle over. That's kind of it. They learn 5 plays and an extra and one formation adjustment. They're not doing much, but they're down there moving mountains every single play. They're going to be exhausted. So I don't. And I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, the success of every play really hangs its hat on the O-line, right? Because you if they aren't successful, it doesn't matter how much fancy stuff you do and who you're reading and how many formations you got. You're probably not going to be successful anyway. So decluttering their mind, let them think about a couple gap scheme plays, a couple zone scheme plays, and go to town. That's good enough for us. Then we let the guys that are just going to run around fast all night, we let them kind of show all the fancy stuff. So they get the formations, they get all the adjustments, the tags, the 2 backs, the 3 backs, empties, quads, all that good stuff. So obviously you're not, I mean, some people are running what they call like a ninja formation or something, right? There's people out there doing stuff with their O-line. And I'm not against it. If that makes you successful, if that gets you an advantage, by all means, run that stuff. We just choose not to use that right now. I'm not saying we won't. Shoot, we may find a time this year that we're like, hey, they're not honoring a big guy in space out there, right? So we can get a blocker out on the edge. Maybe we're running it by the end of the season. But as of right now, we choose not to use that complexity there. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty good base way to go in and look at formations, Coach. All the stuff we talked about today. Kind of checked all the boxes there. I got a question for you now, and this one might stir the pot a little bit.
Okay.
Changing gears completely. So we're going to go college ball for a minute, and a lot of teams are starting to claim national titles from up to like 100 years ago. Auburn, as of today, added 4 national championships to their history, I guess. And one being as recent as 2004. A couple of years ago, Oklahoma State added the 1945 national championship, and which is now their only one. They did it in 2022 or something. So, 80 years almost past. So what are your thoughts, Coach, on people going back in history and changing history with their new success to add to these big metrics like national titles?
Now, college football's always been kind of weird, until very recently. It's been very subjective. I know there were several years, probably the ones you're mentioning, where team goes undefeated, they do everything that's asked of them, and they're never given an opportunity. Was it UCF a couple of years ago? Same kind of deal there, where they claimed one, and now obviously the mindset has been to rectify that. Let's do a playoff, so now there's no real debate. My mindset is go ahead and claim whatever you want to claim. I mean, it don't really matter as far as I'm concerned. You went undefeated. You got some guy who's 80 years old who's maybe still alive. I don't even know. He wants to claim a national title. Because here's what we see in our area. My son asked me about this. So last year we went 13-1, made the state semifinals, and he came to me and said, "Hey, Dad, can we get conference championship rings?" And I said, "No, that's stupid." And he said, "Well, all the colleges do it. All the local colleges around here, if you win the conference, they get a huge ring." And he said, "We won the conference. We made the semifinals of the state." And I said, "I think that's stupid. But here's what I'll say about that. If somebody else wants to give their kids rings for winning a conference championship, good for you. Like, it's not my cup of tea, but if it's something that makes you happy, go for it." I think a lot of times we got these old curmudgeony guys, probably like me, that want to sit in judgment of how dare you honor your kids of a subjective thing that's a game and doesn't really matter at the end of the day. So my mindset would be, if they want to claim it, let them claim it. I think that obviously most people are probably not going to choose to adhere to that judgment, and that's okay.
I get a little indifferent, upset. The A&M one or Oklahoma State, they were Oklahoma A&M when they played that year. They did go undefeated, but they were ranked number 17. We're in the middle of World War II, and Army had an undefeated record too, right? So it always just makes you think, like, nowadays we're super worried. I mean, there's teams that right now the teams that are basically eliminated from winning the national championships, like Akron and Charlotte, maybe, right? That's two teams, even if they win it all and all the big guys lose all their games and those, they still have no chance. Like, you have to play quality opponents to get where you're wanting to be, right? I mean, that's kind of it. If you go out and just play all the teams that also aren't winning any games, you don't deserve a seat at the table at the end of the day. Now,
I did like Boise State getting a shot. I know they got beat. I love them getting a shot, and same thing was it. You go back to UCF when Frost was there. I don't know. I don't think they would have won a national title, but I think they deserved an opportunity,
Right. Yeah. I don't know. It's a good conversation to have with this. I guess if your school's the one doing it, you probably feel a little bit better. Like, hey, we finally get to claim one. But everyone else is kind of looking like, I don't know, man, because no one there's no awarding. I think Oklahoma State had to apply for it, and there was only one team that applied, and it was them. So it was one of those very weird, like they made a decision. No one recognized them later. They recognized themselves. So it just brings that, like, what image are you trying to present? I think
that's the key. I think that's what I would say is if I'm Auburn, I would be much more concerned about trying to win another national title than looking at whatever. Or if I'm Oklahoma State, if you're doing that kind of stuff, it usually means that you're present. What's going on right now probably is not good.
Yeah. Nothing against any of those teams, by the way. If you coach one of those teams, you're listening, we don't dislike you. Most of the time, that's administrative. It's not the coaching staff that's going, hey, let's go claim that national title, right? So, anyway, I just thought that was a good conversation. All right, situation of the week, Coach. I'm going to let you read this one because you wrote it. So
sure. So this it could be. I just want everybody to kind of think about this one. So basically, you're in a game. You've had 3 drives in a row where you went 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Unfortunately for you, the opponent did not go 3 and out. So now you're down 14-0. They just kicked off the ball to you. What are you doing? So you run 9 plays. You don't have positive yardage. Things are not going well. What are you going to do there? Do you want to go first or you want me to go first?
I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
So if we've gone out and go 3-0, honestly, in the way that I script things, that means I've shown them a whole bunch of stuff, right? Because we script the first 3 plays, the first 3 drives of each half, to allow us to look at a lot of chaotic things, which means I probably didn't have it as clean in practice as I wanted. So we're going to get back to our base. We're going to get back to what we do, whether that's living in our one-word system, trying to increase the tempo a little bit. Kind of depends on what the rest of the game is feeling like. If they're have very long drives and they're eating a lot of clock, I probably don't want to go 3 and out in 30 seconds and give them the ball back and let them go tack another one on. So we may start trying to get closer to halftime where we can make some better adjustments. So we may have to slow the game down as well. So that's probably where my brain's going. Get back, get a couple of good inside runs going. If it's a player we've seen, whatever we game planned that week, we think this is where we are the most advantageous, that's where we're headed now. So that kind of those plays we saved for a time of dire straits, we're there. Just trying to be efficient. So we're not trying to get a home run in one play. This is where we may even scrap the RPOs, just get back to just good old school, 12 or 22 personnel, run the football. Let's go get 4 yards. So that's kind of what we're looking for.
Yeah, we're similar. I mean, if we run 3 drives and gone 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, we've probably, like you said, shown a lot of stuff. So I'm probably looking at the iPad and going, okay, what formations gave us a good advantage we can go back to? And then on my call sheet on the far left, I've got this thing called drive starters. Usually I'll put about 4 to 5 options there. And that's, like you said, that's for the dire straits. That's for things are not going well. But on Tuesday, I got on there and said, okay, if things aren't going well, this is a formation we've not shown, something we've not shown out of it that could help us in that situation. So I'm actually have a little column top left of my call sheet for that. And I'm looking at mine for our scrimmage. So right here in my call sheet, top left up here. I only have 2 because it's a scrimmage, but it's like empty formation quarterback run, where I can get the numbers right, or this is a trips motion to quads concept. So these are, because I'm going to guess that if we've run 9 plays and not got much yardage, we're getting whipped up front. Like, I'm going to guess I got to do something to get us numbers to get to a first down. And so that's what usually I would do. And I would recommend a lot of coaches do the same thing on your call sheet. Just have your little column over there for this situation, because this is the situation you need your call sheet the most. Is when things are not going well, I can go over here. Here's a little wrinkle we have. We're not going to run a trick play, but it could be like quads or double unbalanced or something I've not shown on film. But you got to have something for here, because if you run 3 plays or 3 drives in a row and not got many yards, the odds are physically you're outmatched a little bit.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. The finding a numbers advantage, I think, is the key there. Is where can I go back and figure that out? So, all right, Coach. We didn't put in a lesson for the day. We want to do a lesson for the day?
We can. I think we've kind of mentioned several. I would say that, Coach, the main point I would get out of this is, hey, use formations for a tool, but don't let them be something that bogs you down. Like, if it's causing you issues or your kids issues, simplify and go smaller. However, multiple formations can be a very, very good tool for you.
Love it. All right, man. I think we got it all there. Don't forget, you guys, go check out the sponsors, Ace Sports. If you're looking for a fundraiser for the future, if you're looking for the big ticket item fundraiser, Ace Sports is yours. Mark.bridges at acesports.com should be the very first place you go. Talk to Mark. You can, if you need to DM me, and I'll hook you up with Mark, and we'll get a conversation going. Kenny is the living example, done it at 2 schools now. So it is something your school can do. There are no schools that are too small. We can hook you up. Team builder practice. If you've got new coaches on staff, you're trying to pass on a lot of knowledge to them, this is a place to put it all and let them go home and study and come back and be able to run drills at practice in an organized manner. And then last is Winning Edge Performance Analytics. Doug has got a heck of a thing going over there, winningedgeperformanceanalytics.com. When you sign up, make sure you use 20 off Coaching 101. Social media, I'm at Coach Chambo OK on Twitter/X. You can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. Jump on the YouTube, the Patreon, wherever you want to go, find me. Let's have a conversation. Kenny, where are you at, sir?
All things FB Coach Simpson. So fbcoachsimpson.com, and you can find all those team theme books or formation books are over there. At FB Coach Simpson on Twitter or X, and then fbcoachsimpson@gmail.com if you want to shoot me a question.
Awesome. Podcast is at Coaching 101 Pod on Twitter. I want to thank you for being a listener to the Coaching 101 podcast. We'll hope you join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you'll always know when the new episodes are out. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.